Hi, everybody. It's Delusion. I have gathered you here today to talk about my interface and my UI, specifically because I get a lot of questions about it. And yeah, so this is my first YouTube video where I'm just sitting here and kind of talking rather than posting a VOD of me doing a raid fight or a key. So we will struggle through this together. So a quick overview of my UI though before I get into everything is that I do want to let you guys know that I use Atrocity's UI, which is why you can't like publicly find my LVUI profile or my class week auras in my Discord because I pay a subscription to Atrocity through Twitch to obtain his UI and his week auras. And as a rule of thumb, you don't go around and just freely share that with people because that is disrespectful and kind of just violates the agreement that you have made with that person after you pay their subscription fee. Um, so I think $5 is very reasonable. His mods and him have put a lot of work into his interface, and they also have pretty much around the clock support for if you have a question or a difficulty with the interface. So yeah, I have no problem paying $5 for it every month. I think it's a good investment, and if you really like his UI, then you should too. All right, so first off, we are going to go through my add-ons. I'm going to cover what add-ons I have. So obviously I have LVUI. If you don't know what LVUI is, it's essentially a UI replacement or a UI skinner, like how you see my unit frame is black and I have everything here. Um, this is just all LVUI. If there's anything that you want to do with your interface, LVUI can probably do it. You can change everything, you can drag everything, you can change the size of things, you can change the font, you can whitelist buffs. Um, LVUI is very customizable, and I've been addicted to it for a while, which is terrible because LVUI also really drags down your game performance if you don't have a strong computer. I think it's CPU particularly that it impacts the most. Like if we go down here and we look at what's taking up a lot. LVI actually isn't very high right now, mainly because I'm just sitting here idle. But if I am in a dungeon or something, LVI is usually going to be at the top with details. So that does move me on to details. Details are the meters in the bottom right of my screen. It's not mandatory for you to have these, but it is good. It lets you know, you can look at a lot of things here. You can look at how many interrupts, healing taken, damage taken. Most of the time you'll see people just using these for like damage done and healing done. I have different profiles for when I'm in key or raid. If I'm in a key, I like to see current damage, current healing, overall healing, and I like to see deaths in real time. Um, so that, I can go and I see what people died to in real time. Details also enables me to have this window up here which records my abilities. So there, like, you can see what I'm actively casting. So yeah, that's details. Details is also very hard on your computer. If you're lagging in raid, details is one of the first places that you should look. You can disable them. There's also things you can do where you can like change how often the window updates, and that'll sometimes take a little bit of the burden off. Next is big wigs and little wigs. These are boss timers. Um, you have big wigs and you have DBM are the main competitors. I used to use DBM and then I switched to big wigs. I prefer it a lot more. I find it more accurate. Sometimes things have happened where I've been in a dungeon and an ability's been coming up and someone's been like, oh, like it's literally not on my timers. And then I say, oh, like, are you using DBM? And they say, yeah. So I've just found bigwigs to be more accurate. I like it a lot more. So when I'm in a key, usually this is what happens. I will say bigwigs is not going to come out of the box like this. This is a weak aura that turns my timers into this, which I'll cover in my weak auras section. This text will come with bigwigs out of the box, but in terms of these, you're not going to get this right off the download. But it's a very easy weak aura to download. So yeah, we'll go over that. I also really like it because if there's anything that you're struggling with in particular, you can go and find it in dungeon or raid and you can modify it. So for example, one thing that I modified lately is in Nell's Lair. there is a grub master that summons a worm, and if nobody goes and stops the worm transforms and essentially will kill your whole group very easily. So you can go and you can find the mob here in the trash section. You can go to the settings, and I have it emphasized so it's very large text on my screen when it spawns. So yeah, that's big wigs and little wigs. So next we have MDT, Mythic Dungeon Tools. You don't really need this if you're not going to be running keys, or if you're really not even going to be running high keys in general. But if you are going to be pushing keys, it's a very good thing to have, even if you're not a tank. MDT just lets you plan routes and share routes with other people. So, you know, I have a freehold route pulled up here immediately. People name things funny things. Um, but yeah, I don't know what's happening here. Um, but you know, there's a lot you can do. You can make sure that you're at percentage. It's a really good thing to have even if you're not a tank because it's really nice to know what pulls are being planned. Particularly because, you know, if you're looking at routes like this in Freehold, this was on bolstering week, and so as a healer, I looked at this and I said, okay, like in pull one, you know, you're pulling in these guys with the enforcers. The enforcers are going to get bolstered and we're all going to die. And it's just really nice to know like where you're going next and to be aware of it. Um, so yeah, same thing. Goes through every dungeon. People can draw things. They can also put notes. Um, your friends can also do really funny stuff like this, or this. It's a good one. Um, but yeah, like there's a note here: lust 7 on pole, um, lust. You know, so it's a very intuitive add-on, and it's good to have. What's next? Mythic Plus Timer. This is a very basic one. Um, it's literally just my Mythic Plus timer that you've seen. I like it a lot. It's very simple. I don't really like the in-game one. I like it because it tells you how much time you have left for 2 chest, 3 chest. And there's a lot of add-ons that you can go do, and you can like show progress value of the pull. So like it'll tell you how much trash is currently aggroed, so you can know like is this enough? Do we need to pull in more? It'll tell you the deaths. I mean, that's in the basic WoW one, but and it also keeps track of like your best times, so you can kind of see if you're on track with previous runs. It's a very basic add-on, but one that I like. And then I also use OPI, which is something that I switched to when I started hiding my bars. I have one OPI bar for my consumables. So it's basically you just put it on a keybind and then you drag with your mouse. So I hit 3 here and this window pops up and I can drag to consume something. And then 7 is my mounts. So it's really nice if kind of like you have some not so important stuff that you want to keybind, but you don't have like the keybind capacity for it. I've gotten flamed a little bit for my consumables bar because I do use this in combat, but I used to click my potions. So I don't know. And plus muscle memory just kind of helps me. Like I always know that my shock pots are at the top, so I'll just be running. I'll just drag my mouse to the top, won't even think about it. Raider IO. Down here, if you look at my tooltip, you see my Raider IO score, my best run, my timed runs. If you mouse over other people, you can see what it is, their Raider IO score. So yeah, and that also brings me to an LVI additional add-on that I have, which is called Wind Tools. So I've gotten a lot of questions about this, but when I go into Group Finder and I'm looking at groups to join, so Wind Tools is this thing, and it'll let you put a lot of filters, and it'll also show like who's in the group right now with their spec, which I really like. So we see there's a Vengeance Demon Hunter, a Shadow Priest, a Sub Rogue. That's Wind Tools that's doing that for me. This only works if you have LVI though, and there's other weak auras and add-ons that you can get that will do something similar like this to you. I just prefer Wind Tools. Oh look, it's Bond. Hi Bond. Um, all right, what's next? And then SimC, this is a small one. You are probably familiar with SimC if you sim your character. It basically just captures like all of your talents and everything, all the gear that's in your bag, and you can go and put it into raid bots or questionably epic, and it will just let you sim your character. Not much to say there. A smaller one that I have is Mogget. I'm not going to spend time talking about this. If you like transmogs, I've been using Mogget for a very long time, and it basically just lets you scroll through everything in the game and see it on your character, and you can make sets and you can put gear on the wish list. Um, I know that WoW has their own like little collection system like this, but I don't like it as much as Mogget. So, yeah. And then very importantly, I'm going to be going over MRT, Method Raid Tools. So Method Raid Tools lets you do a few things. One of the most important things that I use it for is a note. Um, so if you are progging in a higher tier guild, usually if you're making your way into Mythic, the likelihood that your team is going to put cooldowns in a sheet and then push it out through an MRT note is very likely. So you have this note. Uh, you can display it on your screen. You can hide it, because a weak aura does come with this that will pop up when it's time for you to use your cooldown. So you don't necessarily need to be staring at the note, but it's useful to have. I go into my settings and I hide the lines without my names and with timers that have passed, so that way it's just like a scrolling list of what my cooldowns are that I need to cast. If you want to see everything, you can disable these. Uh, so it's really good to have, especially if you're raid healing. It's not as necessary as DPS, but in the note, you can see your raid will tell you when to hit personals. If you're a DK, your AMZ will probably be scheduled. Shamans, you'll probably have your AG scheduled. So it's very good to have and pay attention to. Next is raid cooldowns. I don't necessarily use this in raid as much as I used to. I use it more for my key pushing, but you can have different profiles in terms of what you want to track, see if it's available. Um, so this basically lets you snoop on everybody. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull up a screenshot because being out here in the open world, I can actually show you what I want to. So here is a screenshot from Halls of Infusion before we started the key. So if you look on the right side of my screen, there's a few things. So that's MRT where I'm tracking Vampiric Embrace, AM, Scales, Zephyr, Mass Barrier. So I have that all grouped because those are our group-wide CDs, right? I want to be tracking those. I want to be calling those on a boss fight. And then right underneath that, I have my kick tracker, which is through Omni CD. And then I have our mass stops right next to the kick tracker, and then I have single stops, which the only thing I'm tracking right now is Hodge. And then my focus target is nestled right in there because whatever I'm interrupting, I put as my focus target. So kind of I like to try and restrict how much my eyes are wandering during a key, so kind of having everything centralized in one spot is the best for me. Um, so yeah, and that's through MRT. My profile is available in my Discord so that you can do this too. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'm always down to answer them, open them. Anyways, and then last is Omni CD, which I mentioned. So that's my kick tracker. And then if you also look at my party frames towards the bottom of my screen, all those CDs I'm tracking are through Omni CD. So I'll go ahead and show you guys right now. So Omni CD is very basic. I don't use it in raid. I only use it in dungeons. So you can have spells and you basically can go into every class and you can track exactly what you want. So because I'm a healer, I'm usually just tracking people's defenses. I do track damage cooldowns so I can know who to give Blessing of Summer or Power Infusion to if I'm on my priest. It's just kind of good to be aware of what people have available to them and what they're casting. It's good to know if your priest has disperse off cooldown, you need them to disperse something, you can ask them to do it rather than having a whole conversation do you have disperse and blah 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 blah. How long till disperse is off cooldown? Omni CD will tell you all of that. It's good to have. So you don't need to track as much as I do. I'm just a nosy person. All right, so that is all of my add-ons. So now I'm going to be going over weak auras. So on my screen right now, there's really not much that is a weak aura. A lot of my weak auras pop up in combat. In the middle of my screen, this is a weak aura. This is not LVY. The holy power counter, that's a weak aura. The spells on top, the potions, that's a weak aura. This is all weak aura. This is Atrocity's weak aura. I have customized it a bit. I haven't customized it like, torn it apart, but some of what I do is I usually I'll add some more spells that I want to track. I'll change the size of stuff. I change the positioning of stuff a little bit because I like it all to be really universal across all my characters. Um, he also usually has different stuff tracked on top of the target unit frame. I prefer to have buffs there, so I move all of that on top of my unit frame and I track buffs here instead. Um, so I'm just going to go through my weak aura window, which there is a lot of. As you can see, it kind of pops up with some stuff, but just some stuff we have. So like my druid pack, that's from Atrocity. Um, Dungeon teleport button. I like this one a lot. It's a very basic, but it's a quality of life thing when you want to teleport to a dungeon instead of having to open up your spell book. What you can do is you can open up your Mythic Plus Dungeons tab and I can click on it and look, I am casting the portal for that. So it's pretty simple and it'll tell you if it's on cooldown. I like that. There's a few weak auras that I've made myself, reminders that pop up on the screen on the side of my screen. So for example, you get a buff as a holy paladin when you have a free word of glory. I'm not always gonna be aware that that buff is right there in front of me and memorize what the picture looks like, so I just put free wog next to me. It's a quality of life thing, right? Um, we have K's. So this is what I use, as I mentioned, the note on MRT where the healing cooldowns are popping up. This is where it pops up and it counts down when it's telling me that it is time to cast my cooldown. Movement, this pops up when I have Spatial Paradox on me, which is the new Augvoker ability that lets you cast while moving. This is mainly for my priest because I raid on my priest. Paladin doesn't really need Spatial Paradox. Target range check. This is a big one. So as you see, I'm targeting this stag beetle right now, and as I move, this tells me how many yards away from it I am. This isn't as important because I'm playing melee and keys right now, but when I was playing my druid, there's some abilities, like for example, the mini boss right before the last boss in Halls of Infusion, her inundate is 40 yards. So as a caster, I would go and I would put myself like out here so that I knew that Inundate was not going to cast on me. This is another priest one. Quality of life tells me when my prayer of mending is ready. If you do not know how to make weak auras, I think you should try and learn it. It helps a lot. It's actually kind of fun, but yeah, it's just a lot of these like I've made myself and they're very basic too. Like this one just tells me when my prayer of mending's ready. I don't know if I could make anything really crazy, but rateability timeline. So this is my bigwigs. This turns my bigwigs timers into this bar that goes down. I perceive things a lot better when they are vertical. Um, so yeah, I have that listed in my Discord if you would like to download that. I think it works with DBM as well, but I know for sure it works with bigwigs. Here's one. So this puts sack and spell warding icons on my party frames if someone has them. I've also changed it to add a few other things if they have Bop, Zephyr, Mass Barrier. I like to see that. Stagger indicator, I have that for if I am, it's anchored to my tank frame is always going to be right here in my party frames. I also have a blood DK runic power tracker. These are good things to know if you're a healer because if your monk is at high stagger, you're going to want to be giving them a little bit more healing, some defensives. This is also paired with Omni CD. You can see if they have cooldowns where they're going to be clearing that stagger. If not, this is very important, especially if you're pugging because they're not going to be in comms telling them what they need. You have to pay attention to what they need. Ultimate mouse cursor, this has a lot built in. I basically change it so that all it does is rotates to let me know when my GCD is up. So yeah, again, that's gonna be in my Discord. All this is in my Discord. Spore Cloak Tracker, very useful, lets you know when your Spore Cloak's ready. If it procs, it'll tell you how large the shield is and how much is left. Mythic plus dungeon targeted spells. This is a very important weak aura that I use. Not posted in my Discord because I obtained this through subscribing to Roybin, but you can probably find one on Wago if you look for it. So it'll show an icon on someone's party frames if they're targeted by something. Um, I'm trying to think, like for example, on the third boss of No Queued, if someone was targeted with the quick shot from the boss, it would show on their frames that they were targeted by it, which was really useful. And if an ability is targeted on you, it'll also do a little ping noise, and that lets you know like it's just very good if you like want to hit a defensive in the moment, like a ricocheting shot in a freehold. Um, So this is Aberris. This is my raid Weakora. It's very basic, but it just helps me be aware of what's going on. So as you see, like here's a few examples of things that it'll pop up with. Like these are CAS ones, so it'll tell you like drop a rift, or there's a tank dot if you're targeted. It'll give you a little countdown for big things if there's a breath coming. It's very basic. It's free. I just like using it. This is part of Atrocity's Weakora. It lets you know about affixes, tell you if there's a spiteful on you, if you're in sanguine, how many stacks of bursting there are. Give you a timer on entangling. This is because Guardian Druid is meta right now after the wildfire icon. So this counts down how much rage they need to spend until you get an after the wildfire heal. I don't pay attention to it probably as much as I should, but it is good to have. Dragonflight Dungeons Weakora. So this is also from the same creator as my raid Weakora. Very, very useful. I recommend that you have this. It lets you know a lot. It just basically keeps you aware of what's going on. It's very good. It tells me things that DBM doesn't. DBM, Bigwigs. Dibs on power infusion. So this is a Weakora that I use on my priest. If someone whispers you PI me, it'll highlight them in the frames and it'll give you a little audio cue to PI them. It's also really nice because like if you're PIing somebody in a pug, so say you PI the mage on pole and then 2 minutes later they use icy veins, it'll tell you to PI them again if your PI is off cooldown. So it's very intuitive. I like it. It makes PI a little bit easier. Freehold shark marker. Pretty self-explanatory. You mouse over a shark and freehold it marks it. Group healer mana. This one is not showing up for some reason when you click on it, probably because I'm not in a group, but it shows the percentage of my healer's mana, which I like to know. So this is a Druid Weakora. I'm on my Druid right now. If you go back and watch any of my Druid videos, you'll know that I have a little life bloom thing here, and it'll basically say who I have life bloom on, and when I hit the pandemic window, it'll glow and do a little ping noise, which will tell me to refresh my life bloom. Very useful on life bloom uptime because one thing I was struggling with for a while was my life bloom healing. It wasn't as high as it needed to be in keys. So I add audio cues when I need to get something drilled into me. This is a Weakora I made myself when I'm in raid and no life bloom is present on myself because you life bloom yourself in raid at the moment as a druid. That pops up across my bars, so I know I will see it. It reminds me to use it. Weakora Incorp. So this gives a spawner on Incorp. Tells you how long you have to interrupt it. I have a few of these. They just pop up and they tell me how many people in the group are missing Mark or Power Word Fortitude. Very useful. This little circle pops up if I have no efflorescence down. I think I also modified this to be no healing rain for Shaman as well. This one's very self-explanatory. If you have a potion ready, puts it right here. Sometimes my potion uptime is bad. My whole point of using Weakoras is just making things easier for me. And you should not be ashamed of doing that if that's what you use them for. Weakoras have made me a better player, and they really help. Combat timer, self-explanatory, adds a combat timer. You can also just make a combat timer in details too if you want to do that. It's an easier thing to do if you don't want a whole separate Weakora for it. Spell CDs on nameplate. You can't see this here, but basically if you're looking at nameplates, this is very useful. They add countdowns right here of their spells. So, for example, the mobs that come to mind are the Cloud Princes in VP that do that big turbulence knockback. If you're a ramp class, like it's really important to know when the mob's going to cast it yet next, and Little Wigs doesn't have that. So if you have the spell CDs on the nameplates, it kind of lets you see how long you have until they're going to cast it again. Static Cling Jump Bar. This is Season 2 Dragonflight specific to Vortex Pinnacle. You have to jump on the last boss. Uh, yeah. And then I have a Raid Weakauras specific to my guild that just let me know when to do things, what to do, Neltharion, that whole thing. Volcanic Heart, if I have it on me, pops up as this big old box. So yeah, those are all my weak auras. And that is my UI. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Please do not DM my mods. I've had a few people do that. I don't like them to be bothered because they don't really know much about my UI. You're always welcome to DM me. And then I do have my UI section in my Discord with everything that's available. If you do have any questions, if you want any customization, tips, or opinions, I really like answering you guys. So thank you for tuning in, and good luck with your UI if you came here for some inspiration. All right.